Welcome to the Courage to Be podcast. I am your host, Tania Vasallo.
Decisions. I have a question for you. How many decisions do you think we average per day? 100, 500, 1,000, 5,000? Just stop and think for a couple seconds. How many decisions do you think we make per day, or do you make per day? I'll give you the answer. We make approximately 30,000 decisions per day, and most of them are on autopilot. Again, I'll repeat, approximately 30,000 decisions per day, and most of them are on autopilot. So the question for you is, how good are you at making decisions? Are you a quick decision maker? Do you need to take your time? How do you approach decisions? And I want to share a little story here. You know that I'm a certified coach from the Napoleon Hill Institute, and this beautiful story about decision making that was portrayed in the book Think and Grow Rich. If you haven't listened to any of the podcast episodes of Think and Grow Rich, go back to the ones that have an asterisk in front of it, and it's all about how this book Think and Grow Rich, that was written almost 100 years ago, has transformed the lives of these people, on that particular episode. But going back to this book, it was written in 1937, but in the early 1900s, Napoleon Hill, he was a journalist, and he got assigned to go do an interview with Andrew Carnegie, who was one of the wealthiest men of that time and most successful men of that time. And so he went to do the interview with him, and Andrew Carnegie must have sensed something from Napoleon Hill. He said, "Why don't you come back this evening to my home? I want to share something with you." And Napoleon Hill was so thankful because he didn't have a lot of money. He was so thankful that he asked him to come back that evening and not another day, because he didn't even have enough money to pay for a hotel for himself, or to stay somewhere else. So he came back to Andrew Carnegie's home, and they chatted. He shared a bunch of things. And along the way, Andrew Carnegie said to Napoleon Hill, "If I opened up the doors for you and introduced you to all the successful men, wealthy men of our time, would you be willing to commit the next 20 years of your life to interview these men that I'll give you access to, interview them, and compile their success strategies of how they've built wealth and how they've built success in their life?" Because I find that a travesty that all these successful men that have acquired wealth, that have become successful in this time, are taking all those secrets to their grave, and they're not sharing it with the world. So now I ask you, before I give you the response of what Napoleon Hill did, would you, let's pretend it's not Andrew Carnegie. It's today's one of the wealthiest, most successful people of our times. You're sitting down with Oprah, and she says to you, would you commit the next 20 years of your life if I open up the doors for you and I introduce you to the right people, dedicate the next 20 years of your life to doing the research for this? But there was a caveat, and the caveat was that Andrew Carnegie was not going to fund these next 20 years for Napoleon Hill. He was not going to pay him a dime for it. The only thing he would do was send introductory letters, back in the day. Nowadays, if you're putting yourself in the same shoes, imagine Oprah saying, "I will open up the doors, I'll introduce you to the right people, but I'm not paying you a single dime." Would you have taken on that assignment, knowing where he was at? He was living almost in poverty. He did not have enough money to even pay for a hotel for himself that day. So I want you to put yourself in those shoes. Would you have said yes, or would you have said no? Would you have spotted that opportunity, or would you have seen it like, no, I need to make money and I'm not going to do this? So Napoleon Hill said yes, and he responded in 29 seconds. And that's how Think and Grow Rich was born. This book was a compilation from Andrew Carnegie, introducing him to all the successful men of that time: Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, Vanderbilts, Rockefellers, just all the people that were creating success and wealth at that time. So what Napoleon Hill came to find out years later was that Andrew Carnegie had a stopwatch underneath his desk, and he was timing him to see how fast he was making his decision. And Napoleon Hill responded in 29 seconds. Andrew Carnegie was giving him 60 seconds because Andrew Carnegie knew from all the men that he'd been around with, and I'm saying men because at that time it was men. Nowadays we could include women in here. But so we have to put things in context, with the times, right? And so Andrew Carnegie knew that the successful men of that time were fast decision makers. There's actually a chapter in the book Think and Grow Rich that's called Decision Making. It's about decisions and how to make decisions and how to make decisions fast. So I invite you to start considering how fast are you at making decisions. If you're not a fast decision maker, why? What's stopping you? Because usually what comes with, especially the bigger the decision, the bigger the fears. So the flip side to the coin of decision making is the fears that come along the way. And you want to pay attention as you have to make a big decision. What are the fears that are showing up for you? And we can talk about all the 6 ghosts of fear, and maybe we'll do another episode with that one, of the 6 ghosts of fear that usually show up. That's another one that Napoleon Hill talked about, these 6 ghosts of fear. I'll just briefly mention them and we'll do another episode with that. But it's the fear of poverty, the fear of criticism, the fear of ill health, the fear of loss of someone that loves you, the loss of their love, the fear of old age, and the fear of death. So think about that. When you are encountering a big decision, what fears are showing up for you? And are you stopping yourself and allowing your critter brain, your amygdala and your mind, make those decisions and give you all the reasons and all the excuses why not to do certain things because you're scared? Or are you following your heart and trusting? Because another component that's really important of this is, so you make the decision, then the fear shows up, and the fear is usually in the same proportion and the same bigness of however big the decision is. But then you have to tap into trust. So go back, go get the book Think and Grow Rich, download a PDF. We'll put it in the show notes. You can get a free PDF of Think and Grow Rich if you want to. And go to the chapter of decision making and ask yourself that question. How good am I at making decisions? How fast am I at making decisions? And if I'm a slow decision maker, how can I start speeding that up? And how can I make decisions that are coming from my heart and from my intuitive space versus from my head? Because sometimes we get into the logical part of things, and you need both. It's a balance of both. I'm not saying it's one or the other, because if you're someone that's super impulsive and doesn't think things through, also go back to thinking about in your own story. How was it for you making those fast decisions and impulsive decisions? Did they work out in the end because they were following your intuition and your heart? Or did they backfire because you weren't tuned into either, or you weren't tuned into your heart and you weren't tuned into your mind? So I'd love to hear your comments. Again, if you want to leave me some comments, the best place to do it is on YouTube, because all the other platforms, I can't receive comments. I'd also really, really appreciate if you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend, share it with a loved one, and please rate our podcast on iTunes. You can also give it 5 stars on Spotify, but please rate it, because this is what helps us get our message out there, with the courage to be. And the more we share, the bigger the message is for everyone else. So if you found value in it, I'd appreciate you sharing it with others. And until our next episode, I'm sending you big hugs and have a wonderful day.
If you loved today's episode, it would mean so much if you rate and review The Courage to Be on Apple Podcast. Not only does it help the show to grow, but it also gets you in the running for something amazing. Every month, I draw one lucky winner to receive a complimentary 7-night, 8-day vacation. You'll get to pick from over 3,000 beautiful resorts worldwide. You just cover the taxes and fees like you would with a travel rewards. Airfare is not included. And if you want to double your chances, along with your Apple Podcast review, leave a couple of comments on YouTube. That counts as a second entry. Just send your screenshots to help.thecouragetobe@gmail.com, and you'll find the email in the show notes too. It only takes a moment, and who knows, your next adventure might be closer than you think. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you on our next episode of the Courage to Be podcast.